Go ahead and call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Basine?
Here.
Campson?
Here.
Gabriel?
Present.
Jordan?
Here.
Rousen?
Here.
Clanton?
Present. Let the record reflect that Dr. Martin is on her way. Okay. Do her motion to enter into executive closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we move into closed session.
Do her a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded that we enter into an executive closed session. Madam Clerk, will you please read the resolution?
Yes. Move that the members of the school board go into a closed session for the purposes which are set out in subsection A of Section 2.2-3711 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as amended for discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of the school board of the city of Norfolk pursuant to subsection 2.2-3711A1 of the Act. The subjects of this portion of the session are the personnel on today's regular personnel agenda, the continuing annual evaluation of the division superintendent required by Virginia Code Sections 22.1-60.1 and 235.13:5, and the continuing renegotiation of the superintendent's contract pursuant to Virginia Code Sections 22.1-60 and 2.2-3711A and 29. Discussion or consideration of disciplinary and any other matters concerning students in Norfolk Public Schools that would involve the disclosure of information contained in the scholastic record pursuant to subsection 2.2-3711A2 of the Act. The subject of this portion of the session is discussion of specific students on today's regular student support agenda. Then consultation with legal counsel and briefing by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation where discussion in open session would adversely affect the school board's negotiating or litigating posture, and consultation with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by counsel pursuant to subsections 2.2-3711A7 and 8 of the Act. The subjects of this portion of the session are those set out above in subsections A and B of this motion to the extent consultation with legal counsel is needed.
All right, thank you.
Oh, I'm
Is there any
sorry.
discussion?
Yes. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have just clarification on the 2.04, the superintendent evaluation process, goals, and timeline. Can you give me some insight as to what we'll be doing there?
For the some of the discussion may go into performance, and so that's why it's being covered under this particular piece. Once we complete, which we should be doing that today, those goals will be made public. Ms. Basine?
Could I add? So the other question is around the timeline. So the timeline, what timeline are we working with?
That'll be shared during the discussion, and then that'll also be made public.
Okay, but so as you know, I was asking questions about whether that was a closed session discussion versus open session discussion where we're talking about some of the goals as we've been talking about the last two closed session meetings where, we've talked about them being collaborative with the superintendent. So
The superintendent will be with us in closed session.
for that discussion?
That discussion, and there's an interweaving potentially of different items there, and for the protection of anything that may potentially go into performance, this is why it's being covered on this particular piece. Once we complete this item here, all of these items will be made public. Timeline will be made public, the actual goals will be made public. And so this was after consultation with the attorney just to make sure that we were covered. Okay?
I have one additional question. So
Yes, Mr. Jordan?
are there draft goals that have already been developed?
There's a draft template after, as I mentioned in our last session when we talked about this, that will be shared with us, and we'll collaboratively talk about them. And that's based off the conversations that we've been ongoing having.
Right, a template, or are there draft goals that have been put together?
Based off the conversation, there are draft goals.
Is there any reason why we could not have received the draft goals prior to the meeting?
We're getting them now, Mr. Jordan.
Okay, I just, well, I had requested because to me, it's better to have them in advance so we can come prepared, so.
They're the
but
same
thank
thing
you.
that we've talked about, Mr. Jordan.
I mean,
There's nothing different.
I don't know, because I haven't had a chance to see
Well, I'm
it.
letting you know now. It's just nothing different, sir. Is there any other discussion? All right, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
All right, Basine?
Voting in support, since we may touch on performance for this, so.
Campson? Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Ralston?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye. We're going to go ahead into executive closed session. Going to go ahead and call us back to order. We're going to come out of closed session. Do I hear a motion? Do I have a motion to certify the executive closed session?
I move to certify the executive closed session.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Do I hear a second?
I second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we certify the executive closed session. Madam Clerk, please read the resolution.
A resolution certifying an executive meeting of the School Board of the City of Norfolk in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, whereas the School Board of the City of Norfolk has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the School Board of the City of Norfolk that such closed business meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore it be resolved that the School Board of the City of Norfolk hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the executive meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the executive meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the School Board of the City of Norfolk.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there any discussion? Chair, hearing none, please call the roll.
Basine?
Aye.
Campson?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Ralston?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye. We'll go ahead and call the business meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Basine?
Here.
Campson?
Here.
Gabriel?
Present.
Jordan?
Here.
Martin?
Present.
Ralston?
Here.
Clanton?
Present. We will now proceed with our Pledge of Allegiance, led by Ms. Naya Moore. Thank you. I was trying to get
Also,
it.
we request that all cell phones and pagers be turned off or to vibrate during the course of this meeting. Thank you. Please rise and remain standing.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. All right, moving on to item 3.04, Board Special Rules of Order regarding public comment period, School Board Policy, BDDHZ, HDZ. Do I have a motion?
I have a point of order question.
Point of order?
Yes. So I don't understand why 3.04 is on the agenda prior to the adoption of the school board business meeting agenda. It would seem to me that if the intent is for us to address this item, we would first agree to add it as part of the agenda during the adoption and then address it appropriately. So I don't know, I mean, I'm looking to you and Dr. Gabriel and Dr. Birdsong, you all part of the agenda planning team. Why is this here? Is there any introduction to it? Why is it above the adoption of the school board business meeting agenda? It got here for some reason, so I'm asking for some clarification as to why it's here and why it's here before the adoption of the school board business meeting agenda.
Not a problem, Mr. Jordan. This is a special rule of order, which gives it precedence, and it's in regards to the agenda. And so that's why it's placed before the agenda, because it will actually regulate the items that are listed in the agenda for adoption.
Yeah, and that's actually my concern, because our process for trying to deal with matters like this, especially related to policy, We've referred things to policy committee. We have given the board time for consideration and deliberation. We then consider placing items then on the decision and discussion agenda. So again, placing it on the agenda at all without any board conversation, to me, to be in contradiction to the spirit of what we said we're trying to do around good governance, and also what we've said we've tried to do in terms of having the board time to deliberate matters and then bring them to the business meeting for action.
Okay, Mr. Jordan, in regards to your point of order, again, stating this is a procedural item. It is not a policy adoption. Matter of fact, policy BDD-HZ-HDZ on public comment is actually in the policy committee. This procedural for special orders is to bring clarity around this particular items. And so with that, I've heard you, but we'll proceed. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion. I'm going to first start with the document that has been attached to our records. Public comment periods. In addition to those public comment periods required by Virginia laws, the school board chooses to hold public comment periods at its monthly business meetings to allow persons residing in Norfolk, the parents or guardians of students in Norfolk Public Schools, and the employees of Norfolk Public Schools to speak to the board, not of the community at large, on agenda items and other matters of concern that fall within the jurisdiction and authority of the board. Such public comment periods are limited, designated public forums that the board may restrict based upon, amongst other things, subject matter. In general, these public comment periods are governed by the Norfolk School Board Policy BDD-HZ-KDZ, public participation at school board meetings and public hearings. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the points of let me see here, special rules of order as presented on the agenda.
There a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we adopt the special orders regarding public comment periods, school board policy BDD-HZ-HDZ. We will proceed with discussion, and I am limiting that to 5 minutes in its entirety. Move on, we have a hefty schedule. And so, since it's been brought up, I'll address some things here, Mr. Chair. Pretty much as chairman, I've given a lot of thought. Being in this particular role since July, we have been attempting to try to streamline things, strategy, to try to get work done in a timely manner. And in July, August, and September, as a board, we voted with the agenda to do that. Nothing in this is taking away a person's ability to speak. And I just want to make sure that that's clear. I think that there's been a lot of misinformation in the respect that we are taking voices away from the community, and that's not the case. We've talked about bifurcating in the respect of separating agenda and non-agenda items. And so the non-agenda items are generally not pressing items at that particular point. Not saying that it depresses anybody in respect of what they're saying, but if we want positive results, a change the school board meeting, we often focus on the matters at hand at first, and those are the things that are on the agenda. And I'll give you a perfect example in the respect when our school bus drivers came here. School bus drivers raised the concern about not being equally paid like everyone else with bonuses. We not only gave them bonuses after hearing them and speaking to the board, but we also came back and ended up changing the salary amount for the starting pay for that. That being said, non-agenda speakers often bring up issues that are that we follow up on. We may not do it right then at that meeting, and sometimes these issues even end up on agenda items later and later agendas. So the change of format is not to impede a speaker's ability to connect with the board, and if any speaker's objective is to make us aware of certain points of view or convince us to make a change or to advocate for a program or initiative, then it's important to note that they still have that opportunity. I don't want the community to walk away thinking that the only opportunity to speak and address the board is from this podium. Our policy clearly states that individuals can email us. We have an online form, school board email. You can call us. Many of us have our numbers that are available there to reach out. However, if a non-agenda speaker feels that being on TV is important and is in itself an objective, I can see why someone would probably be disappointed if the cameras are turned off. As it states, our policy states for us to be able to come in and speak to us. And lastly, I just want to share that I went back and I did a little history here. And in 2016, this board was faced with the same thing in the respect of trying to change its policy regarding public comment. And I agree with what was said in the respect of Mr. Jordan back in 2016 in the Virginia Pilot article. Board Chair Jordan said that on March 20th work session that the board isn't trying to restrict speech. He criticized the description of the policy written in the Virginia Pilot article from last week. He stated that George said that and the superintendent are open game and that serving in these roles involves taking hits. But speakers should do it in a way that's civil and productive, he said. And I agree with that we should do things civil and productive, and it's out here.
Mr. Clinton, is this part of the 5 minutes?
I don't know, Madam Clerk, are we at 5 minutes?
You said you allotted 5 minutes for the entire discussion. Is this part of the 5 minutes?
Oh, no, I'm just speaking, y'all will be able to have 5 minutes in there.
But I'm confused. I thought Dr. Gabriel made the motion, so as the speaker of the motion, shouldn't she be the one speaking?
She wants to be able to speak to it.
When I asked earlier for clarification, now you're providing clarification, but outside of the 5 minute rule.
I'm adding some
that you
additional
said.
context to it since I'm being directly targeted on this particular item here.
How are you being
I'm
targeted? Targeted by whom?
I'm just saying, I'm adding some context, Mr. Jordan, to the particular item. It's been asked over several meetings about public comment and about the agenda. That's all. That's all I'm asking at that particular point. So if anyone else would like to add some commentary, you're more welcome to.
Is this commentary or we're in the 5 minute discussion period?
We're in discussion, Mr. Jordan.
Well, I like to have time yielded in the commentary section when it's appropriate. But I see my colleague, Ms. Basine, has her hand raised, so I'll yield to her.
Ms. Basine?
First, were you finished with your?
Yes, I'm finished.
Okay, well, I appreciate your description of the many ways that citizens can reach out to the school board and the administration. I also appreciate the reference to our policy, which is why I don't understand why this document is even necessary, as we have a policy that's already in place that dictates our public comment and public participation in school board meetings and public hearings. So with that, I am not going to be supporting this procedural document because I do believe in the importance of having a process, adhering to a process that we've agreed to, and this is outside of that. So I will not be supporting this documentation as a policy is already in place.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jordan?
Yes. So, one, we've, what the full board has actually talked about is having some focus and priority on our work and our meetings being focused on student achievement and student outcomes. There's nothing on tonight's agenda that deals with what students know and what students are able to do. So the context of we're making all these moves because we have important business items to address is nothing more important than student outcomes. And we're now having discussion around something that has been placed on the agenda that is not about student outcomes and is totally unnecessary for us to have. Mr. Clanton, since you quoted me directly from some newspaper article in 2016, if you had called me, I would have given you additional context to what took place. The board as a whole had discussions around how we would improve our governance in our meetings. It was from that discussion that we agreed to add the student performance piece that we have now. That came from that full board discussion. We also streamlined some of the resolutions and handshaking and things that we did because we thought that would also streamline our ability to focus. I've noticed that many of those things have returned. I'll also say that I just think I never got clarification around what took place at the last business meeting. During your comments, you mentioned we decided. We haven't had a discussion about this. I'm not sure who we are, and I just think this we would be much better served if we table this and truly have a board discussion as a whole with the superintendent about what is it that we're trying to achieve and how do we do that together. That's what we did in 2016. So, for example, also as board chair in 2016, I reached out to some of our individuals who were speaking often, and I went and had conversations with them, and I sought their input, and I let them know that the board was having these conversations and that we wanted to have a much more civil and orderly meeting. I didn't blindside anyone. We talked about it as a governance team. I went out, I talked to NFT, I talked to EAN, I talked to some others that would often speak, and I asked them if they would be willing to support us in our work, and they agreed to do that. So it was much more comprehensive than what you're quoting in the newspaper article. I have no clarity around exactly what this really achieves, but I want to give you a classic example why I think we should table this and really talk about it in the big picture. So we have some children who signed up to speak tonight. I think it was probably 2 months ago. They asked me to come over and talk to them, and one of the follow-up questions they had was, how do I come and speak to the board? And I shared with them that process. It just so happened that they signed up tonight. I feel that if the board and the superintendent were having a real conversation around how do we focus on student outcomes and streamline our meetings and deal with the public engagement process, we may consider affording children and students of Norfolk Public Schools to speak first. I think there are a lot of things that we could do if we take the time as a board and truly have the type of collaboration that we say we want to have in our governance training versus this approach of procedural Robert's Rule orders. I'm being targeted. This is what Mr. Jordan did. This is, you give yourself an opportunity to talk on the camera, but you don't want other folks to talk on the camera. I just don't think that is in the spirit of good governance and collaboration. And I think if it is the will of the board to go down this path, then we should have a conversation about it, follow our process, and then do it in order versus these procedural moves that gives the, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. I just think it's very much off point, and I'm not even sure if we are even noticing our meetings according to our existing policy. So I think there's a lot that needs to be discussed here. I think we should give the superintendent an opportunity for some input. We should give the policy committee time to finish doing its job. And whether we decided the result is special rules or different regulations or different policy, that to me is what good governance is. And we could be spending this time in terms of students and how things get on the agenda. So I've had requests for discussing the academic work at Lindenwood sitting out on the agenda for months when it was an opportunity to talk about safety and wellness at Southside STEM. That went nowhere. But somehow this item, because I guess based upon your comments, it's important to you, gets on the agenda in this matter. But the things that are important to other board members, that board members have requested the agenda planning team to consider, especially those things that deal with student performance, just get lost.
Mr. Jordan, Dr.
We're still in discussion, right?
Yep.
Okay. Before we take the vote, I just want to express that one of my thoughts on this is that non-agenda items do not mean not important. I will not support this procedure BDDHC/HDZ in part due to sections 3 and 4, which cover non-agenda items. This is, in my opinion, this is a form of censorship that I cannot support based on principle and in support of our democratic values. I cannot, in good conscience, vote for this new procedure. So I'll be voting no.
Attorney Cloud. Attorney Cloud, just for the legal reference here, the procedures that are presented here today, they are within the ramifications law and they're not breaking the law, correct?
My opinion that they're within the law as established by the United States Supreme Court and lower courts regarding regulating what are called limited designated public forums.
May I ask Attorney
All right,
Cloud a
thank
question?
I've given everybody one opportunity to speak, so I'm not going to.
May I just have a legal?
Oh, you want to inquire to Mr. Cloud?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
When did you come to that decision, and why is it that you did not share that determination with the full board, as I had inquired about it on last Friday?
Mr. Jordan, I'll recall the board that Dr. Martin asked that changes be made to the public comment period policy going back in April. And I did a very lengthy memo, confidential memo, to the board about the legal issues then. And we also had a closed session on the legal issues regarding the public comment period policy as it is currently worded. And it was coming out of that it was passed on to the policy committee in April. My concern, which led me to draft this, is that nothing had been done, but the board was making decisions about these matters as part of its monthly approval of the agenda. And although for that to be done on an occasional temporary basis, I think is fine, that based on my review of case law, I felt that the time had come that the board needs to put these changes that have been previously approved on an ad hoc basis in monthly meetings going back to about June into some final formal written form that the full board can vote on in its entirety, with the goal to then completing the process of amending the underlying policy, which is why I wrote it that way in terms of that ultimate goal, so as to bring the board's practices and the board's policy, the current policy as it exists, in line with the law.
You have an inquiry? You have an inquiry?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So Mr. Cloud, Attorney Cloud, so then this was a document that you brought forward for this meeting, not initiated by Mr. Clanton?
I drafted it. It had been discussed before. It was discussed, I guess, at the agenda planning meeting this week. I drafted it based on concerns that I have had for a while.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
With that, we'll conclude discussion. We've had inquiries. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Basine.
No.
Campson. Gabriel.
Aye.
Jordan.
nay.
Martin.
Nay.
Rousen.
Yes.
Clanton.
Yes. We'll now proceed to item 3.05, adoption of the school board business meeting. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the school board business meeting agenda.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we adopt the school board meeting agenda. Is there any discussion?
Yes. Oops, excuse me. I would like the personnel report to be pulled from the agenda, and I am requesting that I'd like to amend the agenda to move item 8.01 to item 7 and move adjournment to item 8.
Do I hear a second?
Hold on a second.
So therefore, we are adjourning after.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we amend the agenda to move citizen comment on non-agenda items 8.01 to take the place of 7.01 and move adjournment to 8.01.
And to pull the
Personnel.
personnel docket from the consent agenda.
And pull personnel docket. Okay. All right.
Would it, friendly amendment, would it be possible to separate the two items? I am very comfortable with allowing the personnel item to be moved out of the consent agenda, but I would prefer to not vote on both of those items together.
I can support that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll deal with the friendly amendment item 1, which is remove the personnel report from the consent agenda, moving that down to the discussion decision, making that 5.03. Is there any additional discussion on personnel report? Okay. All those in favor, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Basine?
Aye.
Campson? Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Rousen?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye. Taking up the second amendment, which is to switch items 8.01, citizen comment on non-agenda items, moving that to item 7.01 and moving adjournment after citizen comment. All right. Is there any additional discussion on that one? All right, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
I do have a question.
Yes, Mr. Jordan.
So I don't quite understand, and I said this before, the original concept behind adjourning the business meeting and then having citizens' comments or any other item after adjournment. Can you explain what the concept is behind having agenda items after the meeting has adjourned?
So quickly, Mr. Cloud, Attorney Cloud actually mentioned it, that when we have public forums, and so that's what the non-agenda items is serving as a public forum. The business meeting is a business meeting, and once those items are adjourned, we move into the public forum, which is the non-agenda items.
So the public forum is what, a new meeting of the board? Attorney Cloud, the public forum is then a new meeting of the board?
The public comment periods are both public forums. When a legislative body chooses to open up a period for members of the public to speak to the body, that is a limited designated public forum. The courts allow public bodies to rules regarding what subjects can be addressed in a limited designated public forum. And so it's perfectly legal for the board to have one forum for the purpose of addressing matters that are on the agenda for discussion and a vote as part of the business meeting, and a separate forum for discussing matters that are not on this agenda and may not be on any agenda, but that fall under the authority of the board to take action in the future.
But just for my clarity, so then when we say that 3 members of the board constitutes a meeting, is that a public forum? Is that what we're saying?
No, the board's meeting is not a public forum. A public forum is something whereby citizens are able to exercise their First Amendment rights. The provision you're talking about, 3 board members making a meeting, is part of the Freedom of Information Act. For purposes of the Freedom of Information Act, that is called a meeting, and it means that notice to the public has to be given, and it has to be conducted openly before the public unless you meet some exemption to the FOIA requirements that would allow you to hold it as a closed meeting. But it doesn't have anything to do with what is or is not a public forum, either a traditional public forum such as the streets, sidewalks, and parks, or designated public forums, which are places that a legislative body like a school board has opened up for the exercise by citizens of their First Amendment rights.
All right, Madam Clerk, please call the roll, and just so that everyone knows, this is on the amendment that Ms. Basine has proposed and changing and moving citizen comment before the adjournment. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll.
Basine?
Aye.
Hampson?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Nay.
Jordan?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Rousen? Clanton?
Nay. The amendment fails. We'll now proceed to vote on the agenda as amended, and the amendment is on the personnel report, which is now item 5.03. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Basine?
Aye.
Hampson?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Martin?
This is to vote on approving the agenda?
Correct.
Nay.
Just for, could I ask for clarification? Because I may have missed that. So we're approving, we just previously voted on the amendment,
We're voting on the agenda as amended now.
which keeps.
Personnel.
Which keeps the comments after the adjournment?
Correct.
Oh, then I'm
You're
changing my vote
changing
to
your
nay.
vote. All right, Madam Clerk, with
And-
that reflection.
Right. And, Mr. Chair, I'd like to change mine to nay as well.
Okay.
Particular.
So, Madam Clerk, if you could just restate that publicly for me?
I'm sorry. I was-
Restate the, just start the vote again so we can make it clean.
Okay, so Basine? Nay?
Nay.
Okay. Campson? Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Nay.
Nay. Martin?
Nay.
I didn't hear. Did she say nay?
Nay.
Okay, thank you. Rousen?
Aye.
And Clanton?
Aye. The agenda as amended is adopted, and so we'll now proceed on to item 3.06, the school board clerk's report.
All right. Chairman Clanton, board members, Superintendent Dr. Birdsong, MPS staff, and attendees in the room, please take a moment to look around at this beautiful artwork on the wall. Just take a quick moment to look. If you didn't check it out, check it out. We have artwork here from Granby High School, Calcutt and Oceanera Elementary Schools, Lake Taylor School, and Norview Middle School. Each month, we will have a rotation of artwork to continue to showcase the creative works of and talented students that we have here in Norfolk Public Schools. They're in here and in the hallway, so when you get a chance, take a moment to look at the hard work that they've done, and thanks to Georgiana Filio, who is a senior coordinator of art education. So let's give those students a hand if they're watching. And next, we have a special guest, Miss Loretta Williams. She's the Senior Director of Education and Equity with United Way, who will give a special presentation to the school board as Chairman Clanton and Dr. Birdsong will join Miss Williams at the podium. She'll show you where you're going to stand for this special presentation. Behind the podium with her.
I understand. Yes. Good evening, council, and thank you all for having us here today. I've already been introduced, so you all know who I am. And if you didn't hear it, I am Loretta Williams, and I'm home again. It feels strange being on this side. I'm used to being over there. But thank you for having us here. Although relatively new to the organization, I have been so impressed by the ability for this group to bring together people from all walks of life. Hundreds of organizations, including nonprofit, municipal, corporate, and thousands of individuals to address our community's toughest challenges. This work is not possible without organizations like Norfolk Public Schools and their employees by what they do every day in their day jobs, but also with their giving back of time, talents, and treasures. Today, we are here to celebrate Norfolk Public Schools for their partnership to honor their efforts during the annual campaign. We understand that the last couple of years in particular have been challenging times for the school system, to say the least. Despite all that, the employees of Norfolk Public Schools and their students through the student campaigns have continued to make giving back to the community a top priority. Just in the last few years, collectively, they have donated more than $220,000 to support local students and families through this campaign. Let's give a hand clap to that. This includes donations directly to hundreds of local nonprofit partners. This support was especially meaningful during COVID, when many of these organizations struggled to stay open and continue serving the community due to council fundraising events. United Way provide grants and collaborate closely with organizations such as Assets College Foundation, Children Harbor, Eggleston, 4Kids, Habitat for Humanity, Hope House Foundation, Horizons, Lee Friends, the Planning Council, REACH, St. Mary Homes, Southside Boys and Girls Club, the Up Center, Young Audiences Arts for Learning, and many more, so that they can continue serving this community during trying times. This has also allowed us to launch United Way's programs, initiatives, including our United for Children, United Children program targeting St. Paul's families, Summer Leap, student needs, funds, and provides services through our Missions United for local veterans. To show our appreciation, we are here today to present you with a 2022 Community Cares Award for your efforts and engagement, and we are proud to continue to work closely with your amazing team. Thank you for all you do.
Right.
Okay, Chairman Clanton, congratulations again, Norfolk Public Schools for the United Way. Chairman Clanton, I'd like to introduce a special student performance video highlighting the summer band camps at Booker T. Washington, Granby, Lake Taylor, Maury, and Norview High Schools, produced by Channel 47.
Good evening, Chair Clanton, Vice Chair Gabriel, school board members, Dr. Birdsong, administration, and guests. My name is Zach Rooksby, and I'm the Senior Coordinator of Music for Norfolk Public Schools. Tonight, the NPS communication team has put together an amazing featurette about high school marching bands. You'll see many of the amazing benefits of participating in marching band that extend beyond the performance of exciting music and precise drill formations. The marching activity truly engages students physically, mentally, emotionally, and socially. I invite you to witness the outstanding work of these students and staff at any of our high school football games, at regional marching band competitions like the Kings Fork Kennel Classic coming up on November 5th, or at local parades such as the return of the Grand Illumination Parade on November 19th. If you'd like more information about band or joining the marching band, reach out to your school's band or music teacher for more details. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the presentation.
1, 2, 1, 2, ready, and...
All of our bands across the district worked very hard during an extensive and rigorous journey through band camp in August. During band camp, band members learn new music, the basics of marching to get ready for the marching season, and get a chance to reconnect and bond with their bandmates. But most students will all agree the worst part of band camp is...
Did a lot of exercising and working out.
A lot of exercise.
The hardest part of band camp was the PT.
We do about an hour every morning of just physical conditioning. Then we take them out on the field, we do some marching basics. So all the basic steps, one step at a time, how to get the knees up, how to step down without moving their heads too much so that when they play, it doesn't affect their sound.
One band, one sound cannot be accomplished without
Discipline. We really enforce discipline from day one because without discipline, an organization cannot function. So that was the biggest thing.
Yeah, discipline is harder than the physical work because it's all a mental challenge. Once you got discipline first, the mental challenge over.
These student musicians owe it all to their band leaders and directors, like Alvin Moore from Norview High School, who show them guidance throughout the whole camp.
I like to see them working hard towards a goal, and when they achieve that goal, and I love to see their progress, just to show them that anything is possible. We start sometimes, I give them a song, and they won't know a note in it, but working towards it, and when we put that song on the field or we put that song in front of an audience, it makes all the difference.
Mr. Moore, he's a great teacher. The things he does sets him aside from other teachers. He's going to make sure not only your education is right, but he's going to make sure outside of school, you're straight. He's going to make sure he's not only teaching you for now, he's teaching you for your future.
Just as important as the band directors are the student leaders of the bands.
To be a drum major, you have to have a specific set of agility. You have to be stronger, you have to be faster, you have to be more smart-willed than the entire band. And for me, it has helped me greatly because now I understand a lot more of being a drum major, and now I can lead the band in a way that I see fit. And I feel like the band is also being greatly influenced by the drum majors.
Marching band is a group activity, and it's an extracurricular activity that isn't about just playing music, but it has other opportunities outside of school too. We're not just teaching music, we're teaching values, you know, with working with each other, having a positive attitude when things aren't necessarily going your way, and really just being involved in a group that's bigger than just themselves. With the marching band here, we try and emphasize the family aspect, that we're not just playing our instruments for ourselves, but we're playing to make the whole group look good.
So 11 out of my 12 seniors last year graduated with full scholarships to college. So that was really, really awesome. And I tell them all the time, and I tell the parents, you don't have to major in music in college, but this is a great way to learn discipline, teamwork, a lot of motivation, leadership skills. And so it really instills all of those values that we want to see our students graduate with.
All right. Channel 47 and the media production team on such a great video and snapshot into our summer band camp. Chairman Clanton, the clerk's report notes the following observances for October. Today, if you notice, our board members are wearing orange ribbons or wearing the color orange in honor of Unity Day, which was on October 19th, so we were not together, so we thought we'd do honors on today for Unity Day. We have a proclamation in board docs for Bullying Prevention and Awareness Month. We recognize National Principals Appreciation Month, Disability History and Awareness Month, Indigenous Peoples Day was on October 10th, National Lunch Week was October 10th through the 14th, America's Safe Schools Week was October 16th through the 22nd, National School Bus Safety Week was October 17th through the 21st, and this week we recognize Red Ribbon Week. That's October 23rd to 31st. And we want you to mark your calendars for our school board recognition ceremonies. The first one is November 30th at Norview High School, and the second one is going to be May 24th at Booker T. Washington High School. And this concludes my report for this evening.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk.
Chair, point of order. Point of privilege, sorry.
Okay.
Point of privilege. Sorry, can we take this moment to talk about our Vector app? Because I don't know that a lot of our community, in light of Bullying Prevention Month, I don't know that a lot of our community is aware that this is in place.
So we're certainly happy to share information about that. We have posted posters in central administration so that everyone knows how to access the application. And I think we've done a wonderful job with promoting it. I'm going to ask Carol Hamlin to come to the microphone to share a bit more information about it. I know I've downloaded the app myself. I haven't had to use it, thank God. Almost had to, but I didn't have to use it. But it is a wonderful application for our parents and for our staff so that we can report incidents of bullying, when someone may feel uncomfortable and they need to reach out for additional support. It's there. All you have to do is download it on your cell phone. So although we weren't prepared to address that today, we're happy to give you some more information about it. So Carol, anything I missed on our wonderful app?
So yes, the app is on our crawler. It goes across on the home page and it gives a lot of information there. If you get in the elevator, you'll see a sign that says, gives you more information, because we are able to deliver not only, the kids like to text, so it's the phone, it's the text, it's an email, it's many different ways to anonymously, or if you want to have response. So it comes into us in our office. Ms. Dion Mack basically heads that up. And but many of us get the report, and then we send it out. And sometimes, parents want to know that it was received, so they get a ticket number, and then we're able to communicate. And it goes straight to the schools. Schools start working on it.
The question, can I ask a question, just for clarification? This is an app, the Vector app, that is not just for bullying. It's not just for students and parents. It's for anyone in our community to download onto their phone.
Yes.
And if they see something suspicious.
See something, say something.
Yeah.
And so that was another motivation to have that there. And so if you go in the Google store or into your Apple store, it's like a blue, it has in the middle, it's a check. And it looks like stripes, like a flag almost. And so then there, when you click on for Norfolk Public Schools, it's 222110, and you put our code in, so it means that it comes to us.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the on the spot.
Yes, thank you, Carol.
I knew she could handle it.
Work under pressure.
Superintendent's report, Dr. Birdsong.
Good evening, Chair Clanton, Dr. Gabriel, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board, and members of our community. Each month I have the wonderful opportunity of showcasing all of the wonderful work our teachers and administrators are doing with our children. And I certainly want to highlight our children this evening. But before we do so, I'd like you to join me in a moment of silence. Unfortunately, we lost two members of our Norfolk Public Schools family recently. We recently lost Ms. April Harmon, who served as our Senior Coordinator of Guidance and School Counseling. She served our division well for 33 years, and we're certainly going to miss her. We already miss her. And so I'd like you to join me in a moment of silence for her passing. We also have Mr. Dale Rosenfeld. Mr. Rosenfeld was a custodian at Blair Middle School, and he served our community well at Blair, our community, and Blair Middle School for 10 years. And he passed away on September the 17th. And he's going to be missed tremendously. So I'm asking you to please join me in a moment of silence, and then we will move forward with my video report, please. Thank you.
Norfolk Public Schools Department of Learning Support is partnering with School Nutrition to provide work opportunities for our postgraduate students. Currently, 7 students from the Post-Secondary Career and Development Program spend time at the Central Kitchen working on everything from preparing food to packing carts to send to schools. With 4 of them already fully employed, it's clear that these young people are quick learners who enjoy what they do.
When they're making the salads, they can put in the different components that go in each salad. They help us gather them all up and pan them up properly so that we can count them all. When we're making the rolls, they follow the direction and they're very careful around the machinery, and they just take the rolls and pan the right amount on each pan.
I'll be doing like
this, like do like different schools, all that, and get the trays over there and all this stuff over here. We just put it inside the in the tray, then we take it to the freezer, and the trucks come take it to different schools all day. I just like it here though. That's what I like. I like it here though. Do different stuff all day.
These outstanding students with exceptional needs are not only getting the opportunity to work and learn new skills, they're also having a positive impact on everyone around them.
Their addition to our staff has just changed the whole tone and culture of the environment here. They bring a youthful vitality. They're very strong and upbeat and really eager to learn. So we love having them as part of our team and hope to just grow this part of our workforce.
First and foremost, it shows our students what they're capable of doing. And then it allows businesses to understand what our students are capable of doing. And when we can do it in our safe, structured MPS environment, it's a great opportunity.
Sherwood Forest Elementary School was the host for an event where students got their eyes checked for free.
Well, this is part of our initiative, following Norfolk Public Schools Drive for 5, looking at the community involvement and just creating that culture of caring for our students. We really focus on the whole child. So, you know, I was lucky enough to develop a partnership with Essilor and Homer Optical, who were able to come out and give the children free eye exams and free glasses if they need them in a few more weeks. So, you know, it's just us really trying, you know, everything we can with Norfolk Public Schools and Sherwood specifically to support the Drive for 5 and make sure our students have everything they need academically and otherwise.
Students' examinations started with a vision screening process, which included checking color and depth perception. If needed, they saw one of the 3 volunteer optometrists for a full examination. If after that it was determined they needed glasses, the students went and picked out their frames. Glasses will be delivered back to the school in a few weeks.
Es muy importante, ¿verdad? Porque a veces uno no sabe si los hijos estarán portando algún problema o algo así, pues se siente bien y es perfecto.
For her, she never knew that her daughter needed glasses, and it's so important to know that now her baby is going to have a better vision, and that we're doing great for she feel for her it's everything right now, you know, there.
Me siento bien, feliz.
She feel very happy for her, very happy.
Yeah. Community partners were there with activities and information, while school nutrition provided food.
The kids are loving the face painting, the tattooing, the spinning, the different food options that are healthy as well. So I think it was a great experience for us to come here today, especially for the first time kindergartner that we have, to see this community come together for this event.
An event like this can help students' performance in the classroom and in life.
Catching them early, getting them in the habit of thinking about their eyes and how important they are, hopefully puts them on a path to recognize how important this is. And if they are struggling and we can help them in a little bit, we're happy to do it.
Unity Day was celebrated across Norfolk Public Schools as students and staff wore orange and took a stand against bullying. At St. Helena Elementary, students were joined by Billy the Bully Buster at their anti-bullying parade, and one of their students, Journey DeLoach, was recognized for winning the Unity Day logo contest. Later at Taylor Elementary, the entire school gathered outside to form a giant unity circle to show that by joining together, kindness can prevail over bullying.
We stood together against bullying and representing being a buddy instead of a bully. Just being united and standing together and not allowing meanness to occur. If you see it, stand up for it, stick up for the person, or tell an adult.
It's so important because it spreads the message of Norfolk Public Schools' position on making sure that each of our children are safe at school, that they feel safe, because we know that when our kids are safe and mentally healthy, it makes them much more successful academically. So that's what the day is all about.
Booker T. Washington High School hosted the first of 2 community input meetings about the future of the school and its Academy for the Arts specialty program. Representatives from HBA Architecture presented background information about the process and timeline, and then asked those in attendance to answer questions about their vision for Booker T.
We are in the just early stages of planning what the future of Booker T. Washington High School is going to look like, to be like, especially as it relates to the Academy for the Arts. It's always important to get the heartbeat of the community, because schools are for the community. And we're here to serve the students, and these are parents, these are grandparents. So it's very important to hear their viewpoint on what future schools should look like.
So we're hoping to find out from families what it is that they feel like Booker T is doing well with this academy, where the opportunities may be for growth, what opportunities for things that we may not have envisioned that the students would really like to explore in an Academy for the Arts.
It was very rewarding, actually, because people were actually hearing what I was saying about the school that I'm in, and a lot of the stuff that they were talking about happened way earlier on before I ever came to the school. And so there are a lot of new problems that surfaced that I was able to bring up.
Well, I felt like that this was a good opportunity, because we need to have a presence, and we need to let it be known that Booker T is an integral part of Norfolk. So I wanted to make sure to come here tonight to lend my support, and just to say what was important to me, to be able to be here and express my opinion of what Booker T should be.
Maury High School was the site of the first of 2 community input meetings about the future of the building. A representative from HBA Architecture shared 4 possible options for Maury, 2 renovations and 2 rebuilds, before attendees broke into small groups for discussions. After talking over all the choices amongst themselves, each group reported out their favorite design and gave reasons why it was chosen. All of this valuable feedback will help determine what the new school and campus look like.
Well, you don't do a project of this scale with a few people in a room pushing buttons. It takes a community to get behind a project, to understand it, to support it, because it's going to be needed to support financially. It's a significant investment. None of these options are cheap.
Well, the community is the reason that we are doing this. It's for the children coming up, it's for the taxpayers, it's the taxpayer dollars that actually fund the budget, that City Council allocates money for school rebuilding and remodeling. And so we really do want to listen to the community and hear their feedback as to what they want. This is their high school, and we value their input.
It was good to come and to see people, to talk through the different options, to weigh the pros and cons about if we were to try and, for example, renovate the existing school, understanding like what that would really mean, like from a construction perspective, because I don't think you really would get that from just reading an article or looking at a PowerPoint, but hearing it and talking about it really helped.
I think it's a great thing to figure out what the community thinks and what they say. I love that they have a diverse plan. They have multiple plans. I already have an idea of what I'm choosing personally, and I was able to talk to some of the faculty members too that have lived through working at Maury, and I feel like we're all kind of on par. But yeah, I just want the best for future generations. I hope to have a child that goes to Maury High School in the future, so I'm very invested in this.
Children's Hospital of the King's Daughters held a special ceremony to dedicate their children's pavilion, which will provide inpatient mental health services to young people. With the possibility of housing 60 patients at a time in this brand new facility, Norfolk Public Schools teachers and staff will be on hand to assist these children with furthering their education during their stay.
It makes a world of difference, not just we have plenty of scientific evidence showing that having a hospital school is just incredibly meaningful for their overall clinical outcomes. But subjectively, anecdotally, we've heard from so many kids who say, if I hadn't had some way to continue the school while I was healing, while I was recovering, I would have had to take a year off.
We're hoping to provide them with the best education possible, but at the same time instilling in them that they can become whatever they want to be regardless of what they're going through. So to take their mind off of what they're struggling with, education will be the key to help them move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Dr. Birdsong. Madam Clerk, we're going to move to item 3.08, citizens' comments on agenda items only.
Chairman Clanton, for tonight's citizens' comments on agenda items only, we have 9 speakers. Today's speakers have signed up for public comments before the start of today's business meeting. If you would like to provide public comments for agenda items only, you are required to state the agenda items you are addressing prior to providing your public comments at this meeting. When your name is called, please come forward to the speaker's podium, state your name and whether you have a child in Norfolk Public Schools or if you are employed by the district, and state your agenda items. One person is to speak at a time. If you are representing a group, state the group's name, and you may ask your group members to stand in place to be recognized. Speaking time is limited to 3 minutes. A timer is set with an alarm that will signify the end of your speaking time. State your position and give facts and other relevant data. Avoid saying anything that identifies students or personnel information about individual employees. Personnel, disciplinary, and confidential matters may be addressed to the school board directly via email at schoolboard@npsk12.com. Comments should be addressed to the board and not addressed to an individual member. School board members do not respond to public comments at the time they are given. Any written statements or supporting materials should be given to the clerk. Chairman Clanton, our first speaker for this evening is John Sitka, followed by Mark Askew.
Good evening, Chairman Clanton, school board members, and Dr. Birdsong. How are you tonight? On agenda item 5.0203 concerns the contract renewal for Dr. Birdsong. Frankly, I'm opposed to it for one specific reason. I think it overlooks the needs of the teachers first. For example, according to Virginia Pilot, January 2020, as acting superintendent, she was able to get $170,000. In March, when she became full-time, she received $220,000, and that's according to Wavy 10 and WVEC. That is a pretty significant jump in pay. Not to mention, now we're offering her $242,282. We're talking over 9% increase in pay. Not to mention, during this period, the teachers have been under pay compression. As far as I'm concerned, I have no problem giving the contract unless we're going to get rid of teachers' compression today, immediately, and because the contract's supposed to take place today. Not to mention, if she's getting 9%, which is a good cost of living, because right now, inflation is 8.2. Therefore, let's give that to the teachers. And I strongly want to make sure our teachers are taken care of, and I've mentioned this before in other forums. Take care of your teachers, they'll take care of you. And remember, I don't want teachers to go to Chesapeake or Virginia Beach. They need to come to Norfolk. And the way to do that is treat them right, let's pay them right. So therefore, I'm opposed to renewing this contract in the format that it's in. Now, once we get rid of teacher compression, we give them the pay that they deserve, give it to a reasonable cost of living, fine. Okay, let's go ahead and run with this. I have no problem with that. I'm glad that we're doing all these things for all the students, but to me, the teachers is the critical part in this whole equation. Like it or not, they're the boots on the ground, they're on the front line. Thank you very much, Chairman, Dr. Birdsong, members of the board.
We have Mark Askew, followed by Melissa Garman.
Greetings, human family. I'm Mark S. Askew, Senior. I'm a father of 4 children. We have 2 who have successfully graduated from Booker T. Washington High School, and we have a remaining 11th grader and 7th grader that is NPS in virtual. I am also, let me state for the record, I am a candidate for Ward 3 Norfolk School Board, and I would like to address agenda line item 5.02, the superintendent's contract. My brief commentary will be in context to what I read online last evening regarding NPS's faith-based initiative, which reads as follows. Faith-based partners work together with Norfolk Public Schools to maximize resources and relationships that foster growth and success for all students. Educating and raising the next generation is a shared responsibility. When schools and faith-based organizations collaborate, students find more success and the entire community benefits. With 13 days until November 8th, 2022 election, it feels metaphorically like the Last Supper is being served without the placemats and the silverware for our veteran teachers on the table, and betrayal lingers thick in the atmosphere. In the book of Matthew, chapter 26, verses 25 through 27, it reads thusly, Then Judas, which betrayed him, answered and said, Master, is it I? He said unto him, Thou hast said. And as they were eating, Jesus took bread and blessed it, and he brake it, and he gave it to the disciples, and said, Take, eat. This is my body. And he took the cup, and he gave thanks, and he gave it to them, saying, Drink ye all of it. Jesus did not command the disciples to drink 1/3 of the cup like the school board told the veteran teachers to take 1/3 and we'll see you in 2 years. This evening, thus far, has been about the leadership. It has been about the leadership setting an agenda to celebrate themselves by publicly receiving awards during the last business meeting prior to an election, and ultimately to anoint our Chesapeake, Virginia residing superintendent with a solo feast of $242,000 salary guaranteed for the next 4 years. I think it would be a bad and a tremendous mistake on behalf of this board to forget our teachers who have been on the battleground begging and pleading for 16 years.
Thank you, Mr. Askew. Your time has expired.
I would ask the board to postpone.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next.
Ms. Garment, followed by Rakita Robinson.
I came here tonight in hopes of speaking to you before you voted on 3.04. I'm glad to at least have an opportunity to speak. This policy change was proposed as a measure to improve the efficiency of the board, when in reality, as written, this policy sends a message that the concerns of your employees, your parents, and community members are not worthy of being made a matter of record. This is legalized suppression. It is not in the spirit of partnership or service to the community. What would be the agenda item for a parent whose child has been repeatedly injured or terrorized by a bully, and the parent feels not enough is being done to protect their child? Or for a bus driver who is cursed and ridiculed by parents or students, and whose pleas for help have been mismanaged by their leadership? Or for a teacher wrongly accused of injuring a student, when the school district fails to interview witnesses she provides in her own defense, and whose career is in jeopardy? What would be the agenda item for a member of the public who has sent emails and letters without reply to address these concerns formally to the board? or for an NPS employee to report hostile work environments or unsafe working conditions that may be ignored by their leadership or the district? What would be the agenda item for NPS staff to plead for help when they have made multiple referrals to the students who physically abuse them as staff, terrorize classrooms with destructive, aggressive behaviors, and may pose a risk to themselves, yet the students are not disciplined, not suspended, nor reports filed in their permanent records, all to keep VDOE out of NPS business? The truth is that these issues will never find themselves as part of your business agenda. With this policy, your meeting agendas can be packed so full that you can systematically suspend public comment, as in the last paragraph of that policy. You have just put into code a policy to suppress the voices of constructive criticism, public concern, and cries for help when all other avenues have been exhausted. You make it a matter of discussion, not a matter of record. Your employees, your parents, and your community deserve better, and shame on us for putting our trust in you and voting you into office. Thank God November is coming.
Rakita Robinson, followed by Courtney Skinner.
Good evening, board members, superintendent, Birdsong, and guests. My name is Rakita Robinson. I'm a first grade teacher at Richard Bowling Elementary School and a proud member of the Norfolk Federation of Teachers. I'm here tonight to speak about turning off the live streaming during citizen comments. As you know, at our last school board, I had the opportunity to speak on the agenda item as personnel.
Excuse me, is it which item? I know you said live streaming, but which agenda item?
3.04.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, you may proceed. I just want to make sure we're on.
Let's see where I was. As you know, at our last school board, I had the opportunity to speak on the agenda item as personnel. My school did not have flags displayed out front of the school, and this had been the case since the previous school year. This was so concerning, as you may remember, because our students' curriculum required the flagpoles display as part of the learning experience. You should know, because the mic was hot that night, before I could reach the school the very next morning, our school building manager had a visit from his supervisor about the issue. So we now proudly display flags in front of our building, and our students have mastered their social studies objective. But I have to wonder, what would the situation have been if I had not had the opportunity to share? I heard in the last board meeting and again tonight that there were several ways to be heard, but unfortunately, history has proved nothing works more favorably than airing our laundry in this public forum. I have a great concern when any elected board or individual board members strategize a plan that doesn't allow community comments to be on the record or shared on the platform under the guise of expediency. It goes directly against the idea of transparency and does not build trust in NPS to do the right thing. It can appear shady and leads the residents and students and employees and stakeholders to seek to be heard through other avenues: social media, the Virginia Pilot, local news stations, State Department of Education, and public protest. As I heard tonight, some sound voices on what good government is and what it could look like right here at NPS that would keep this board above reproach. As it was voted here tonight, this is not to be the case with our school board, and it is obvious that our integrity continues to be an issue. You've shown us better than you could tell us, which is kind of what I teach my students, my first graders. If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it must be a duck.
Courtney Skinner, followed by Thomas Calhoun.
Good evening. My name is Courtney Skinner, field representative with the Norfolk Federation of Teachers. And tonight I'm just going to be reading your constituents' comments in regards to the hypothesis that was tested at the last school board special meeting. Quote,
Again, please state the agenda item for which you're.
304.
Thank you.
I come from a family of 5 generations taught in Norfolk Public Schools. My daughter was a teacher. The public deserves to know what is said and done. It is in complete form, troubles and triumphs, all the same. The silencing of the people should be time to revoke. The action by the board chair makes him unfit to serve the best interests of students and families. The next comment we hear is, what do we have to hide? The next comment here is, public comment should be public. Keep the cameras on and the public informed. This is outrageous. If they thought they weren't being shady before, they sure are now. Is everyone just supposed to go along and pretend this is okay? Ridiculous. I pledge to support as best as possible. As a teacher who works in Norfolk but lives in Virginia Beach, I do not get to vote for NPS school board members. Mr. Clanton is up for re-election, and his attitude came across as though he was superior to everyone in the room, including his fellow board members. He spoke over them and was very disrespectful. We need to know as a public what is being voiced. We do want transparency. Please keep the cameras on. If you have nothing to hide, keep the cameras on. Keep the cameras on. This is unacceptable. School board meetings are for citizens, parents, and the community. Whatever is discussed in the meetings should be open for all to hear and see. Please make public comments public again by sharing them as opposed to having them in a closed session. We need and expect full transparency. I question many decisions that the Norfolk Public School made in the past. The decision and the issue didn't make sense to me, and I just knew that information was missing. Lastly, all should be heard because all had something to say. And again, these were all the comments stated by your constituents in regard to the last school board special meeting. Thank you for your time.
Thomas Calhoun, followed by Usain Beck. Usan, thank you.
Good evening. Thomas Calhoun, President, Norfolk Federation of Teachers. And I came here to speak on the Citizens Agenda. I believe it's 3.04. And I really had one question, and thankful to some of you, you've already answered that for me. So my question was, why did you make us last? I can remember Superintendent's remarks first, citizen comments was next. For years, this board wanted to hear from the citizens first. And now, this board, some of you, will last. And I just gonna ask, why we last? People who vote for you, last. People who work for you, last. People whose children you educate, you put them last on the agenda. I was here last meeting, I'm just trying to figure out why. And you've answered that, so I just made a couple of notes. I'll be done. We're not important. What we say is probably not that important, so there's no need to put us during the regular meeting. What else? Let me see. I think the attorney said that, we weren't even part of the business meeting anyway. We were part of public forum, but not worthy of recording or being on the business meeting. You are, but we're not. And then I think it was a comment about, well, if you just have to have the cameras, well, we don't just have to have the cameras, do you? What you say should be in the meeting. What you say should be on the camera. What we say shouldn't. You can't put everything that a parent or employee of yours has to say in your agenda. There has to be. You adjourn the meeting and then tell us to talk like you did last time? Okay, y'all wanted to talk, go ahead. That's what you think of us? Period. You 4? You say the meeting is more streamlined if you put us last, sir? Be somehow disruptive to public? Your meetings are more streamlined if you have your meeting, adjourn the meeting, like Mr. Cloud said, and then say, okay, well, y'all can go ahead and talk. Is your meeting more streamlined? Really? But do y'all think of y'all? You don't think anything of the employee? Jesus Christ!
Usan Beck, followed by Tony Johnson.
I'm Usan Beck. I teach at one of the schools in preschool, and I'm a Norfolk teacher. I'm speaking on item 502. I'm glad that the 5 goals for achieving equity and excellence and Drive for All was voted in. So I have a question where I'll start. Equity and excellence for all is a promise. I want to ask, is that right? And I want to stick to that point. So here's my first statement, $242,282. The number is what our superintendent will soon be making October 26, 2022 through June 30, 2026. Yet, we've been asking over the past year as a union for step adjustments to employees that have been in the district between 5, 10, and even 15 years. And I had to write this down because I have people who've been asking me about these saying, no, the school board does not care about us. And it's teachers, assistants, and I'm a teacher, so I'm talking about teacher assistants coming up to me. So this is not me speaking for me at this point. It says, let's not focus on myself alone, but 2 assistants I talked to explained that they cannot pay their bills. One works a second job even at my school. They sought me out and talked about their disenfranchisement. Some teachers around Norfolk, and this is now outside my school, stated that how this district handled COVID and many other things shows none of the school board cares. I can tell you for a fact, when I was making calls about collective bargaining or collaborative bargaining, I might have got it wrong what I said, but I know when I was making phone calls, I was making those calls, and people said they wanted to leave Norfolk because of how things were handled and how they were getting paid. Those were frontline issues and all. But back to that. We want collective bargaining, so let's go there. Says, I'm here because I believe differently. We want collective bargaining, teacher assistant, and teacher pay. Furthermore, Dr. Burson can get a contract negotiated swiftly for 4 years, yet employees have to wait for 3 years to see an 8-step adjustment in a school where we work with children in need and we sacrifice ourselves and our time with family daily and some from other communities. I've got to drive to Virginia Beach after this, see my son. I've got 5 kids at home. But I care about the kids in this community, which is why I'm here, because teachers feeling undervalued means that this is how they feel when they walk in that classroom to put on that happy face when they see their children. But let's address that. It says, now I wonder why there are 200 plus vacancies with teachers. There are a lot of people with a multitude of concerns, but we love the children. Love doesn't keep a roof over their heads if they cannot afford to get to work, or so much is demanded that we cannot be effective for the children. Yet we continue to do more with less, and the line of trust dimmers each day. Will a district run with no teachers or teacher assistants? Just because something is legal does not make it right or ethical.
Tony Johnson, followed by Natalie Ferreira.
Good evening. My name is Tony Johnson, and I am an NPS employee. I work at Granby Elementary. I'm a kindergarten teacher. And I would like to speak on Agenda 5.02, if I may. But first, allow me to make a few points clear, crystal clear. I am not here to malign our superintendent. I have no qualms with her. I have no argument with her, and I respect the level of responsibility and oversight that she bears as our superintendent. But I do, however, want to express my surprise at the salary she will be receiving if this contract is approved. If approved, she will earn more than $250,000. And what's disheartening is to realize that her position is valued that greatly. Her salary conveys the worth you have assigned to her and the position as superintendent. My question is, will you be so generous when deciding the next budget and employee salary scales? It is disheartening to see how much value is placed in one person when so many others are behind in steps and struggling to make ends meet. I sincerely hope that this contract is just the first gesture of its kind, and that just as you ensured room in our budget to pay one person nearly $250,000, you will also ensure room is made to correct all Norfolk Public Schools employee step compression and give us salary raises that truly demonstrate the value that every Norfolk Public School employee gives to this school district. Because one person cannot ensure the success of our schools. Each and every Norfolk Public School employee is necessary for success to occur. I hope you remember each of our values when the next budget and salary scales are written. And I thank you.
Natalie Ferreira.
Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Birdsong, Chairman Clanton, and board members. My name is Natalie Ferrara, and I am a teacher in Norfolk Public Schools at Norview High School. I'm before you this evening to address Agenda Item 3.04, the board's consideration of not recording or live streaming public comments on non-agenda items. This past summer, while most of the school community checked out on summer vacation, interesting developments took place amongst our school board. Without an explanation to the public of why it occurred, leadership within the board changed hands. Per board rules, I can't single any individual member out. However, the shift in leadership can only best be perceived as a further continuation of personal gains. The factions in this board have been apparent for years, typically 3 or 4 of you against the other 2 or 3. And it's a constant game of chess in which each of you make maneuvers that result not in improved educational outcomes in Norfolk Public Schools, but result in another step on the ladder each of you are climbing. While best described as dysfunctional before, the behavior now borders on dangerous. The removal of public comments on non-agenda items from recording and live stream will hinder Norfolk's ability to be inclusive of all community partners. Do you all understand what it is to hear someone else tell your story, the story you are too afraid, too ashamed, too silenced to tell for yourself? Upon hearing that this board would even consider this, I had no words. Literally, I was speechless, and that's hard to do. The mere suggestion of limiting citizen participation in today's world is unfathomable to me, yet the board will tell you this is their effort at efficiency. No. What this is instead is your latest effort at suppressing the narrative of community partners that they don't want shared. All community partners deserve to speak and be heard by the entire community when it involves community issues. I will end by sharing this. Respect is earned and not given. And if you've forgotten, please take a moment to enter my high school classroom and I'll allow the teenagers I educate to humble you. At no point, not one single time over the past 9 years, can I ever recall any of you spending any considerable amount of time in either of the buildings I have worked in. As an elected representative, all of you ultimately represent individual schools for the wards in which you serve. Yet the mere consideration of policies such as these, ones that limit civic participation, demonstrate the board's inability and blatant unwillingness to know the communities you represent. While showing up to summer school graduation should be a minimum requirement for an elected school board member, it is an achievement on which some of you campaign. That alone tells you everything you need to know about the leadership of this school board.
Chairman Clanton, this concludes our speakers on agenda items only.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk, and thank everyone for the opportunity of participating in public comment this evening. Moving on to our next item in the agenda, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
And let me just clarify, that's to approve the consent agenda as amended. We took out the personnel report. Is there any discussion? All right, Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Basine? Aye. Campson? Aye. Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Nay.
Martin?
Aye.
Rousen?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye. We'll move to discussion decision item 5.01, monthly financial report. Mr. Jenkins?
It's coming up.
Good evening, Chairman Clanton, Vice Chair Dr. Gabriel, Dr. Birdsong, and members of the school board. I'll talk to you this evening about the financial reports for September. The September report covers 3 months for the fiscal year that started July 1st, 2022. As with previous financial reports, this reflects activity between July and September that was recorded on or before October 17th. The general fund collections during these 3 months was $79.2 million. This is 20.7% of the $383 million general fund budget. During the previous 2 periods, the collections range between 16% and 21%, so similar. On page 3 of the highlights, we provide a graph of revenue and spending for the current fiscal year. By the end of September, we spent or encumbered $64.9 million, or just under 17% of the budget. Again, you can see revenue at $79.2 million. During the previous 2 years, spending at this point of time ranged between 14.9% and 15.1%. So our spending is just a bit above the previous 2 years. Page 4 includes 2 graphs, one for revenue and the second one for spending. The graphs present monthly revenue and spending for the current and 2 previous years. Monthly budget trends appear in the green background. Spending in September also exceeds the trend, largely because of a 3rd payroll that occurred in September. This happens a couple of times every year, 2 months a year. More detailed information on revenue and spending is available starting on page 5. There was one budget transfer, I believe it's on page 16, Ms. Tanner, that exceeded $50,000. We transferred $300,000 from the facility improvements to operations and maintenance to address repairs at Norview Middle School. On 17 of the report, page 17, we included a quarterly update of categorical grants. As of September 30th, we were managing $285 million of grants, with just over 50% available as unexpended. On page 17 of the package includes information on federal coronavirus assistance. Those are the first 2 items, two major categories on page 17. All funds spent from ESSER 1, which is also known as the CARES Act or the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. ESSER 1, we had spent all funds before the September 30th deadline. You see there's a little bit of money left here, but we're processing requests with Department of Ed even as we speak, but during this time period. So those numbers have come down, and we've actually spent all available funds. Spending for CARES included $7.4 million for technology, $3.1 million for student health, facility sanitization and PPE, $700,000 for students with disabilities, and $500,000 for summer school programs. We also spent a considerable portion of our award under ESSER 2. This is known as the Coronavirus Relief and Response Supplemental Appropriation. Congress approved this in December of 2020. As of September 30, 2020, we had spent or encumbered 68% of the $51.4 million that we received under ESSER 2. The remainder of the funds are available through September of 2023, and we will spend those funds before the grant expires in accordance with their plans as approved by the Department of Education. Finally, we received nearly $120 million of grants under the American Rescue Plan Act. This is referred to as ARPA or ESSER 3. This was approved by Congress in March of 2021. Most of these funds remain available through at September 2024. Although these funds remain available through September of 2024, so 2 years from now, roughly. There are a couple of grants that expire a little earlier, some of the smaller ones. I won't go through the long laundry list of how we spent the funds, but the major ones, we spent $20.4 million on replacing heating and cooling units or improving indoor air quality. We've spent $8.75 million for learning loss and $6.4 million for instructional supports. And the last one I'll mention is $5.4 million in technology. We've also spent money on behavioral interventions and supports and social and emotional learning. As of September 30, 2022, we'd spent or encumbered $23.4 million of the ARPA awards, leaving $96.5 million still available. As I said, we still have almost 2 years left on this grant. We continue to spend the remaining funds in accordance with their plans as approved by the Virginia Department of Ed. Included with your monthly budget report is a report of gifts and donations. We received $35,406 from 7 donors. Most of the gifts were for the purchase of instructional supplies, and further details are available on the report. In accordance with school board policy, we recommend that you accept these gifts for the purposes stated. Chairman Clanton, this concludes my comments on the September financial report. If you or the board have questions, I'll be glad to try to answer. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Do I have a motion to accept the financial report?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the financial report as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we accept the financial report as presented. Is there any discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Bassine.
Thank you, Mr. Clanton. I have a few questions related to the main monthly report, and then I'll move into the grant report.
Sure.
So starting with the monthly financial report. So to date, do you have the amount of unspent funds that we can expect, or am I missing that in the?
Okay, sure. If I can turn your attention to page 9 of the report. Our budget is $383 million. We have expended through this date $56,576,000. We have issued encumbrances of $8,340,000, and there remains $318.3 or $318.4 million that is in the current budget. And this is pretty typical. This goes through September. There's most of our costs are in staff salaries, especially teachers.
Mm-hmm.
We paid three of the pay periods, and teachers have, I believe, 22 periods. So we spent quite a little less than we would have if we were fully staffed, but I'd say we're on target.
Okay. And so I guess that leads me to my next question. So given that we are not fully staffed, has there been consideration with this budget transfer even to look at bonuses for, or other strategies for recruiting or attracting teachers in some of our schools where we have higher number of vacancies versus some others.
Are you referring to the $300,000 transfer that we have included in the report?
Yes.
That transfer has been made. It was to address severe and immediate needs for repairs at Norview Middle
So
School.
those were immediate needs, okay.
Yes, that work has been done.
Okay. All right. And then moving into the grant funding. So, you know, and I've asked this question before when we've had the quarterly grant updates about the specific uses of the grant funds. And I know I don't expect you to rattle off, you know, everything that the money has gone towards now, but if there is a way for the board to see what that is or highlight specific areas that has had the greatest leverage in producing positive student outcomes, you know, I personally would like to know what those areas are, and even to have a discussion around, again, going back to our teachers, going back to our schools that have higher vacancy rates, and limited long-term substitutes. You know, I'd like for us to be able to go back and talk as a board about what we can do to better support our schools, or better support the administration to support our schools, because I do think that we, you know, kind of need to have a more laser-like focus than we have had on that, as from a board perspective, that is. So that's, I would like to know what we have spent the funds on.
I'm not prepared, I mean, I provided
know
a
you're not
short
prepared
summary.
tonight,
I can't
but-
tell you
yeah.
specifically everything that we spent on, but
Right.
our spending would have been in accordance with the application approved by the Virginia Department of Ed. If the board wishes, we can certainly provide more detailed reports.
Or maybe a 2x2 with Mr. Jenkins.
We could do that if that is not something that the other board members would like to hear more about. I'm open to that, but
I'll ask, are there others?
I'll join you with a 2x2 if we don't
Okay.
do it.
I appreciate Ms. Bassine's comment, but I feel like I have been kept abreast of all of the spending that Dr. Birdsong has allocated. We receive these reports at our work sessions. We receive this document every month. We know that it is specifically going to upgrade our very aged HVAC systems, windows, doors. I know that Dr. Birdsong has talked repeatedly about the ODU and Norfolk State, some of the other university partnerships that we have with mentoring programs, the FEV mentoring program, Lexia, Admentum, all of these things which are focused to student achievement and maintaining safe, clean, dry buildings. So I personally feel like the information that I have received is good, it's accurate, it satisfies the fact that I have confidence in the division and how they're spending it. I do appreciate the fact that you are reporting to us that we are spending it in a timely manner, because we certainly want to be responsible with the funds that we have. But if other board members need to have extra clarity or knowledge about the spending, I'm very fine, but I don't necessarily need that as a board level discussion at this time.
Mr. Chair?
Yep, Dr. Martin.
I just want to comment. I agree with everything you're saying. It's not that there's a lack of understanding, but I really like the idea of looking at impact and where if we can have see a causal relationship between these programs and improving academic outcomes. I mean, I think that's a valuable conversation, and I understand if the whole board is not interested in that, but I'm willing to participate in that.
Thank you, Dr. Martin.
I'm not saying that the board isn't interested. I think Dr. Gabriel just laid it out, that there's a plethora of different information that we're receiving on a consistent basis. So if we can do the 2x2 first, I'd love to have Ms. Bassine and Dr. Martin to report back out to the board, and then we can kind of go from there. Okay?
Can I add one other item?
Yep.
So to follow up on the comments, as a part of working with our partners with Advantage Strategies, the legislative group that we're working with. One of the requests that they did have was to outline in a very simple format how Norfolk Public Schools is spending the federal grant funds and how it actually does impact student achievement, safety, buildings, what is this translating to? So I'm always looking at impact, the so what, so to speak. So this ball may already be in progress. So I'll just put that out there as well.
Yeah, and I'll concur that that did come up.
Right. And if it is, and as it should, that's something we should keep an eye on. My comment and my questions around that are not to suggest that we are not being kept abreast, but I think that just as we've talked about being able to shift and with our understanding of the needs of our students and knowing how the board can support the administration on those things, I think that it's an appropriate request. So, I've been consistent with my feelings about what's a 2x2 and what's a full board discussion. And I think that we're capable of having collaborative discussions as a full board where we all are receiving the same information and have the same knowledge about what works, what isn't, what we have questions about. Because,
I'd asked Ms. Basine, because we've approved a monitoring schedule. Let us look at it and see where that is. Dr. Gabriel has already identified that we also have been asked to do a one-pager. And so as soon as that's prepared along with the legislative agenda, to share that out. But I'm definitely putting this down here so that we can have that full board discussion, because I think it's important. Because there have been some not accurate information that's been shared about how we've been using certain dollars and things like that. And I think it's important for us to show that connection. Okay. Is there something else?
And I just want to add too. I think it's in the board's purview to prioritize areas that we may want to spend where I think that's worthy of discussion as well. So I just want to put that out there.
Dr. Russell.
Yes, I'd like to thank you for the report and previous reports also, but I do think it's important that that we really focus and be mindful of spending this money. I think that's very, very, very important, and I think as a board will be involved in that, but I think that's important. And I think my colleague, Dr. Martin, commented on impact. I think impact is a discussion that we have to have with the use of it, but we also got to make sure that we spend this money. And I think that's even directed from the state, that we really need to spend this money, because I know if we don't spend it, there won't be any impact.
We do see emails flying when that deadline gets close.
Thank you. So I just want to be very mindful of that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Is there an additional discussion? Mr. Jordan?
Yeah, just sticking on the current theme, I had emailed, the governor had his press conference the other day about NAEP scores and academic performance, and during the conference he called out certain school divisions, and he called out Norfolk Public Schools by name. Can you describe in this report what it is you think that he was referencing, and perhaps in this report there's something that's updated that maybe was not available to him or he didn't have in his speech at the time?
Well, I saw bits of that. I'm afraid I didn't see the entire thing, but I did get a bit of. I would say that the information indicating how much that we had spent was not as accurate as we have available to us. I would presume that he had spoken with the Virginia Department of Ed. They base their spending, they know how much we have claimed. We are often a couple of months filing after the spending actually takes place. So spending that takes place last month in September, we haven't filed those claims yet. So we're always further ahead than the Department of Ed is aware of, because we send our claims monthly, and we're often more than 1 month behind. So that's part of it. I believe that the governor indicated we'd received somewhere, I think, about 189 or 190 million, which is pretty close. I'd say it's accurate. We received 64 million under CARES and CRSA, and almost 120 million under the American Rescue Plan. So I don't quibble with that. I'd say our spending was above. I think he had said 136 million. We're showing something more. I would also say to you that these were multi-year grants. The first one was about 12 million, and we were given 2.5 years to spend it. And we were actually well within the 2.5, we were well within the first year before we got really clear, definitive explanations on how we could spend funds. It was several months. I think it was approved in March, and by summer we had better feel for how we could even start spending. So we have just recently completed spending everything in the first $12 million grant, which is a pretty sizable grant for Norfolk. The second award was over $50 million and came in December, 9 months after the first one. We were given until September of 2023 to spend those funds. As I had said, we'd spent about 68% at this point. We still have 11 months left, and I can confidently say all of those funds will be spent according to our plans that the Department of Ed approved. And if we're getting close to the end, we are permitted to revise our budget. We will do that if that's necessary. We will find money that is eligible for the purposes that the funds were provided for. So I'm confident we will spend that. The granddaddy of all grants was the ARPA.
I don't want you to have to go on. What I'm really interested in is if what the governor stated in his press conference came from whatever.
It did not come from us. It would probably come from the Department
That's
of
what I'm
Ed.
saying.
And as
So-
I said, they would be a couple of months behind their actual spending.
I'd just like to have, if there's some way that you can give us some report that just shows alignment between what VDOE may be reporting publicly and what we're reporting, so there can be some understanding and alignment.
That is on this report.
Well, that was my original question. I don't know how to. So the
There's-
governor says 136.
We have 16 million, remaining funds, yes. We have 16.3 million under the first two grants, and we have 96 million under the ARPA funds. So if I add those two together, I think I come up with 112, yes, about 112, 113.
Mr. Jenkins?
Okay.
Oh.
I'm not finished.
Well, I was just going to ask him if he could repeat it, because I couldn't quite hear him. Is that okay?
Yeah, like you said, 112 or 113, close to the rough calculation.
Yeah. We have remaining about 112 million at the end of September.
Well, the only other piece I wanted to add, based upon the conversation earlier,
And if I can, let me clarify that, so no one walks away misunderstanding. 112 million is what's left. It includes reductions for orders that we have made for services and products that have not yet been delivered. So we have commitments that leave the balance at 112. We haven't paid for some things. We're waiting for installations, services. We're under contract. Some have not been delivered at this point.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I don't have the deep understanding of the impact on student achievement, student outcomes. I know we've talked about learning loss, and I know we've gotten a lot of reports. I would encourage us as a board to make sure that we can clearly articulate the impact of the resources on student outcomes. That was something that was mentioned when the funding came down, and we had the opportunity to talk about some of those goals. The environment that we're in right now, to me, we are under a microscope because of student achievement. and the finances are resources that we still know are not enough, but nevertheless they are significant resources. And that was the point that I was trying to raise when we were first having discussions around what do we prioritize for the funding. There's no question to me that schools and buildings and air conditioning units, all those things are important, but they're not what students know and what students can do. And I think that's ultimately what we have to make sure that we're providing focus on. So thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Jordan. And as we wrap up this particular piece in here, I also like to point a note out that, Mr. Jenkins, the funds for which you were mentioning are federal dollars, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so they're not from the Commonwealth of Virginia, and they're coming through as a flow-through from the Commonwealth, but it's nothing that the governor has appropriated or through legislation to support local education.
The Virginia legislature was involved in a small portion of it, but most of it flows directly to us through the Department of Ed from the federal government.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll.
Basine?
Nay.
Campson?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Nay.
Martin?
Aye.
Rousen?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye. My colleagues, if you will allow me an opportunity to introduce a special order of the day, and this is, and what you were saying earlier, Mr. Jordan, I'd like, because it's almost approaching 9 o'clock, for the Clean Youth Organization to have the opportunity to come and present before the board. So without objection, I'd like to add a special order of the day and allow them to speak now. Okay.
Does that require board action?
There's a
If
Janet,
no, I just asked if there's no objection.
From me,
Yeah,
I'm good.
great.
Janet Montgomery. You also have Callie Bell, Lanaya Grimes. Can't hear you. Kaylee. Kaylee. Okay, thank you. Okay, is Janet Montgomery here? Okay. Is Lanaya, so Lanaya's not hearing. Okay.
Great, welcome.
Hello, my name is Janet Montgomery. I'm 13 years old and I currently go to the Academy of International Studies at Rosemont, previously Rosemont Middle School. And I would like to address some of the issues that I personally have had with my school life. As a student, I do not feel that my academic, mental health, and safety needs are being met. I don't feel secure in my school's building. The Academy of International Studies at Rosemont is incredibly old. My mother graduated there in 1978, and from my findings, the school was built circa the early 60s. The building hasn't been remodeled, rebuilt, or fixed significantly since its creation. There are holes in our ceilings, teachers are forced to set down trash cans to catch leaks, and the air conditioning in our gym is still in the process of being fixed, which has hindered us from completing mandatory fitness testing. Rosemont is supposed to be a rigorous and respected school, but our building only reflects that we are unkempt and looked over. I'm also incredibly unimpressed with the expectations and experiences that children labeled as gifted have to go through. We are either paid too much attention for our gifts and given specialty work, or ignored because people assume that we can instantly grasp content when we can't. Gifted children don't learn the proper study techniques needed to understand harder content because we are expected to excel instantly. As we move up through grades and graduate, we wind up hitting a wall. My personal roadblock was when I entered the Young Scholars Program at Rosemont. I dealt with strong feelings of self-loathing, frustration, confusion, and anxiety. Now that I'm older, I feel that the overwhelming praise and special treatment from administrators only hindered my potential and love for learning. At 13, I feel nearly completely burnt out, not just from academics, but from the social atmosphere of having even higher expectations placed on me as I move on to high school soon. I suggest implementing a new system for educating those identified as gifted or disbanding the label altogether. Going to school for me does not feel safe. We're all aware of the horrible tragedies that have been happening across America recently, and every day the paranoia grows that the next event will hit too close to home. The poor physical condition of my school only exacerbates this issue. I hope that in the future, heavier security will be made mandatory for every place of education. More security guards, metal detectors, or anything to keep us safer. I will admit that I'm not well versed on the economics of this potential change, but I'd hope that you prioritize the lives of your young enough to make sacrifices for them. I am very dissatisfied with the state of Norfolk Public Schools. Your many shortcomings have accumulated into an unpleasant learning environment for me, from the old buildings to the horrendous school lunch. At 13 years old, my previous hunger for learning is all but gone. I dread walking into the building each day for fear that something will happen. You have not experienced the same hardships that I have. Times are changing, and I do not want to fail in life. I do not want to become a statistic, and I do not want to be a victim on the news. If you are not up to the task of giving us a healthy learning environment, then I politely ask you to give up your position and leave it to someone willing to make a change. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Kaylee Ball, and today I'm here to discuss a major issue that I noticed often when I was a student at Blair Middle School. This issue in particular I first witnessed in the cafeteria. There were two girls screaming and hitting each other while who I was assumed was a friend of hers held her back while security watched and did nothing to break the fight up. How is one expected to feel safe in school knowing if someone decided to attack them they'd have little to no protection? Although it is not my belief the root of this problem is lazy security guards, I believe the cause of this problem is not only a fear of the school staff getting hurt themselves, but the possibility of intervening can lead to being injured in the process, having to answer to a furious and protective parent, or even being fired if the actions they take in a stressful situation are not seen as justifiable in the eyes of their superiors. How can security guards, teachers, deans, or even principals be expected to deal with these situations if they have no support from parents or the administration? I think a step that can be taken towards a solution is more involvement with parents and staff to be able to interact. By this, I mean parents should have say in decisions that concern their child. They should be able to have access to active interactions with their teachers so that they can check in on their children's mental, physical, and academic state, and so they have more options to volunteer and participate in more events during the school year. If you can't do it for the unappreciated teachers here and the concerned parents, do it for me and the kids who know what it's like to be afraid every day that they'll be abused psychologically, physically, and humiliated. Thank you.
And that was the last of the young ladies that you have for today.
Okay, all right, thank you. And thank you all for coming and addressing the board. We're going to return back to the agenda. 5.02, Superintendent's Contract. Do I hear a motion to adopt the Superintendent's Contract?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the superintendent's contract.
Okay, do I hear a second? All right, it's been moved and properly seconded that we adopt the Superintendent's Contract. We've got, I open it up for discussion. We've got 5 minutes listed on this item. Dr. Gay, would you like to speak first?
Love to speak first. I'm excited to vote to have Dr. Birdsong lead our division for the next 4 years. She has demonstrated professionalism. She has demonstrated accountability. She has demonstrated commitment to our students. And as a board member, a citizen of Norfolk, and as a parent of students within Norfolk Public Schools, I have full confidence that those items, characteristics that she demonstrates are going to continue, if not increase even more. I fully expect that with the development and the approval of the strategic plan, while it's only a document at this time, now is where the real rubber hits the road with regards to implementation, monitoring actions, having response to intervention, so that way we can see our students succeed to their highest potential is what we all want. And I have full confidence that Dr. Birdsong is the leader that we need for this division. And so I will be voting in favor of the contract.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Basine.
Thank you, Mr. Clanton. I want to be clear that my remarks are more about the board, okay? So the board has made it the norm to forego a thoughtful and collaborative process which impedes the board's ability to consider factors necessary for informed decision-making. That has also been the case with this agenda item. The way the board began and concluded this process raises significant concerns for me around the motives behind the timing, and I believe has put undue pressure on certain board members. It's critical that we are forging a path that leads to positive student outcomes. I take this process and decision seriously. Therefore, at this time, I cannot support this motion.
Okay. Anyone else? Jordan.
My comments are really to the board. I was willing to do a 1-year extension in the context of the work that I think the board needs to complete with performance goals and measures and expectations. Over the years, one of the major concerns that I've heard from a staffing perspective is people feeling that they will be rewarded for their performance and things not be done based upon personal relationships. I think the board has an opportunity to really tie superintendent's performance with student academic progress in a strong way if we were willing to do so. What concerned me about the process that we ended up using, or the timing of the process, to me, we allowed political dynamics of adults get in the way of just making decisions in the best interest of children. And there are board policies that address, for example, GBG, Gold, Baker Gold, staff participation in political activities. And it spells out that, while employees have the right to engage in political activity, the board also recognizes that school time and school property should not be used for partisan political purposes. Thus, when engaging in political activities, an employee may not use the employee's position within the school division to further a political cause, engage in any activity supporting or opposing a candidate or political party while on duty, suggest in any manner that the school division or any component of it supports or opposes a candidate for election to any office, use any school division property to engage in any activity supporting or opposing a candidate for public office or political party. And there are other policies that deal with gifts and appearances of conflict and so forth. And I think that our push to take action around election time periods doesn't put us in a positive light. So I will not be supporting the contract as is. Again, I was willing to support what I think has been a typical practice of a 1-year extension that would have given us time to align the strategic plan and our outcome goals to performance. But I will not be voting in support of the proposal of the motion. But I appreciate all the time and effort that the board did put in this process. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Dr. Ralston.
Yes, well, I think about student academic progress. I don't think there's anything greater to promote academic progress than consistency. We can play musical chairs with leadership positions in no public schools or any organization, but I can tell you already it's going to be a major setback in any organization to play musical chairs when you have a leader that has taken us through the pandemic, which is probably the most dramatic experience that I know I have gone through. I lost many family members during that period, and I know our children lost learning and our families were impacted, and she led us through that. And we have to give her credit. I'm going to give her credit for that as a superintendent, to sort of see us through that. And she did. She has been in Norfolk Public Schools for many, many, many years. So I know the commitment is there. I know the dedication is there. And I will soundly and loudly support the superintendent's contract. And this is not about political gain or anything else. It is about looking at paper, looking at the record, looking at her track record, looking at what she's done, and that's what I'm looking at. And I think that will guide me, and I will be able to sleep at night. So yes, I will support. Thank you.
Ralston. Ms. Campson.
I think my voice is slipping away, so I'm going to get close to the mic. I also support Dr. Birdsong. I felt when we were looking for a new superintendent, it was exciting to know that we had found one with a history of knowledge and success in academics, because that's what school's about. We do a lot of things to help our students and get them ready so that they can be successful with academics. And we have a superintendent that has demonstrated that here in the city of Norfolk as principal of Azalea Garden School, when she took it quickly to full accreditation and was named National Middle School Principal. I mean, how impressive is that? Recognized by the country, by the nation, for being the best. And we have her here in Norfolk. And she knew what she was doing. She knows what she's doing. I'm excited that we have her. I would not want to risk losing her playing some games with how much money is here and how much money is there. You need to pay for what you have, and I will be strongly supporting the superintendent. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Campson. Anyone else? Okay, I just wanted to inquire to Attorney Cloud with the contract and within the last year of a superintendent's contract, the board's responsibility, and why we, I guess, moved into this engagement to begin to talk about a contract. Can you explain a little bit more about that 1 year period?
Well, there's no particular requirement that you can't go into the last year without a new contract. Obviously, you have to have a superintendent at all times, and you need to plan if you were not going to renew Dr. Birdsong's contract, to give her new, or advertising and conducting the process of hiring a new superintendent, which you have to do within 180 days of the position being exited. So, I mean, it was, the process for discussing the contract and what to do about it probably should have been started sooner. The new contract has a provision that requires the board, beginning the year before, it would be July 1, 2025, to start the negotiations for a new contract if the board at that time is going to offer Dr. Birdsong a new contract.
Thank you, Attorney Cloud. I'd just like to share a statement. So Dr. Sharon Birdsong has proved to be a highly effective leader during her almost 3 years of service as superintendent of schools. She successfully led Norfolk Public Schools through a pandemic, ensuring that every child has access to a mobile device and the internet. Moreover, Dr. Birdsong has ensured that the most recent operating budgets proved more resources for schools and classrooms. Her learning recovery initiatives have certainly paid off for our students. Schools has recorded solid academic growth in student performance, particularly in the areas of English and mathematics. And Dr. Birdsong also charted a path for the development of our school division strategic plan, which is a school board recently adopted. She works in the best interest of our children each and every day, and extending her contract would be a wise item to do. I concur with my colleague, Dr. Rowson, in the respect. It's been said that lack of continuity has been one of the biggest things that has plagued Norfolk Public Schools. And we have to lead from the top, and making sure that we have a solid leader at the top demonstrates consistency and confidence to all those throughout the division that we have a leader at the helm that has a team together that is putting the best interests of our students. So, Dr. Birdsong, you've done that. You continue to do that. I also want to bring clarity because there was misrepresentation earlier. You are not receiving a 9% increase in your base salary. She received the same increase that we gave teachers. She's not receiving a 9% increase. She's not receiving a 9% increase. I want to make sure the paper get that. But it's the same thing we're giving to our teachers. Also, you came in as an interim, stepped up to this board. When we made that decision to go with you as superintendent, we would not know that literally within a month, 2 months, 3 weeks, we would be in the midst of a pandemic, and it's the right choice. We got someone who has committed, and at that time, well over 20 years of her professional educational career has been here at Norfolk Public Schools. I've heard little slight remarks about her living in Chesapeake. I'm gonna tell you something. We all know we live here in 757. It's a thrown store anyway. And I believe that wherever you're living doesn't matter. Your commitment to showing up each and every day and putting a solid team together, making sure that our children are first and foremost is what matters to me. And so I'm not going to get into the back and forth, but I can tell you right now that this decision, for me, is nothing to do with politics. I'm not sitting in this seat because of politics, and I'm calling Michelle Obama, I'm going to stay high. We're going to make the right decision, I know it from me, to support Dr. Birdsong and to show to our division that we need to make a decision that's in the best interest of our kids. And so, Dr. Birdsong, I will be supporting your contract renewal. I think it's the right thing to do. And I know that you are going to come back and do the right thing by all of our division, and that you are always, each and every day, our conversations every day, you have the hearts of our children, the little lambs as you call them, and all of the teachers and the staff members in this school division. So with that, Madam Clerk, I ask that you call the roll.
Basine.
Yay.
Campson.
Yay.
Gabriel.
Aye.
Jordan.
Nay.
Martin.
Aye.
Rowson.
Aye.
Clanton.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Birdsong. We look forward to seeing great things over the next 4 years. We are now going to move into committee reports. This was a item that was requested out of board work sessions. So at this time, those individuals who have committees, serving on committees, task force, I'll allow you an opportunity to just kind of quickly report out on those items.
Klein, I just wanted to remind you that the personnel.
Oh, I'm sorry.
report
Thank you.
was
I wrote that down here. Thank you. 5.03, it's getting late, I know. Personnel, and so I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the personnel report.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the personnel report as presented.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, great. So, Ms. Basine, I know you asked for the report, so I'll let you speak to it.
Yes. Thank you. And I want to acknowledge I wouldn't typically pull the personnel report because my issue is not with the content of the personnel report, but the overall, and we started to discuss this, but we pulled back from it, but the number of vacancies and seeing consistently in the personnel report, the schools that need greater support around staffing and how we can prioritize that discussion. I know we talked about it in September when we were talking about personnel, and that I know I shared at that time that it's hard to continue to keep approving a personnel docket that doesn't seem to to staff the very schools that we talk about needing greater support. And so I just want to keep that conversation at the forefront, find a way where we can have some discussion around it, some out of the box. I know the division is working very hard in the areas that they've already described to us, the strategies that they've already given us about what they're doing. But, if there is monetary, if there is whatever we need to do, but again, we're here in November, and the same schools that even last year that were understaffed, they're still understaffed, and I know we all acknowledge and are concerned about that, but we have to do something. And so that is, I'm going to continue to be uncomfortable with continuing to approve personnel dockets that don't strategically address, placement, whatever we need to do to ensure certified teachers in front of our students in our underserved schools.
All right, thank you, Ms. Racine. Just for record, I know hearing you while you pull out the personnel docket is approving those individuals there, and I do agree.
Understand.
If the administration does need to come to the board for, a monetary or something that we need to do to support a plan that they have developed, I definitely put that into agenda planning so we can find a time to be able to bring that back. But I know that Mr. Billups and his team is working hard. I just want to remind the community that we are experiencing I think over 300,000 teachers left the profession at the end of last school year. That was back in June. So it's not just a Norfolk Public School thing, but I do not dismiss the urgency of making sure. But we've got to do some out-of-the-box things, and I would definitely support that and, what the administration may bring back to us. But I'm going to see how we can move this up, and so we can give time for the administration to come up with that if they haven't gotten something already, and so we can bring that back, okay?
Okay. Well, and I want to reinforce the reason I'm bringing it up tonight is because we had this same discussion in September. So I really strongly urge us to prioritize that discussion.
Yeah, and we're just here in October, so give us some time.
I guess I'm in November.
Good. Dr. Gabriel, do you want to say something?
Ms. Basine, the concern that you have, as you mentioned, is not of deep concern to the rest of the board. I mean, not having a certified teacher in front of our students each and every day, we know the impact that a teacher can have on our children. So please, I don't want it to be put in light that because we're having this discussion in this manner through the personnel docket, that the care and the desire and the focus is not there. And I know you don't mean it to be that way, but I'm just saying that as you have brought it up in this way, I know that through the strategic plan, there are specific goals that address schools in particular, which have had hard to staff situations, ongoing situations. So there, as you mentioned, there is work being done by the division, and the discussions that the board will have based upon the timeline that we have approved with the strategic plan, I believe will afford us the ability to discuss as a board. So I just want you to understand that I appreciate you bringing it up, not necessarily in this format, but the concern about the teacher vacancies and what the division is doing weighs very heavy, I believe, definitely on me. I will not speak for the rest of my board colleagues, but I know that in the emails, discussions, all the other avenues, channels of communication, that is definitely a focus point. Thank you.
Mr. Clanton,
Yes,
could I
Mrs.
just want to provide one response. We saw that the floors in Norview Middle School were urgent and did a budget transfer to support the school and the building facility with that request. This is urgent. It is not a wait and see, implement the strategic plan type of, so that's where I'm coming from, that there is an urgency, because this is not a recent development. It is a development that has been in existence at these particular schools, which I'm not going to list, with the fill rate, that still don't also have a long-term sub in there. it's critical if we are going to achieve the goals that we say we're going to achieve. So just as we are putting attention on facilities and critical needs there, this is a critical need. So that's all I'm going to say. And I recognize this is not the format, but again, this became the format because that urgency needs to be shared by all of us.
And I hope that, and I hear you, Ms. Messina, and I hope that you will bring some context of respect to what our superintendent shared with us, that she is actively out meeting. She had meetings with the colleges and university presidents to talk about how we might be able to bring student teachers and some other things that are there. So there are actions being taken place.
Right.
Excuse me, so.
But I'm certain that's not the
But I
only
hear
action.
that we have a sense of urgency, but if we don't have the people to fill the seats, it's not going to really make the difference. So we got to figure out some ways of.
And I want to hear about it so I can support those efforts.
Exactly. So, but we've got to allow our administration to bring that to us. But I hear you, okay? Madam Clerk, if you go ahead and call the roll on the personnel report.
Okay. Basine?
Aye.
Hampson?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Rousen?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye. We're going to go ahead and committee reports. If just kind of go with my colleagues that are doing certain committees, we just want to kind of a quick highlight and report out. So, Dr. Gabriel, you want to start?
Sure. I'll first start with facilities. We met today, actually. Ms. Campson, if you're okay with me. If you're okay with me.
Yeah,
kinda.
you go ahead.
Sure. So, and I know that as we formalize the committee reports and how minutes are uploaded and whatnot, this process will get easier to understand and will get more streamlined. But basically what we do is we go through the projects that have been allocated and how the funds are being spent to make sure that the projects are done on time. They give us an update on that. They update us on a variety of items that are coming down the pike with regards to facility improvements, what their thoughts are as far as building needs and maintenance. And our goal is to meet at least once a month. We will forego our meeting in November to meet in December, and we can also post the minutes. We just met today, so we can post those minutes later on from our discussion for today. That's facilities. The second committee is the legislative committee. I had a good conversation with our partners with Advantage Strategies, Mr. Ron Jordan, Ms. Kathy Bircher. We will be aggressively developing the latest draft of the goals, the legislative agenda. I think all board members have received that information, so any feedback that you have, additions, changes, add something else onto it, we welcome that. We have also sent it to the leaders of the SEAC and the GIAC committee. They have raised some feedback to say that they would like to have some input on it, and so we have sent it out to them. And so we are in the midst of preparing that information as we receive the feedback. And we do have our Take Your Legislator to School Day scheduled for November the 30th. That is still in the very early stages of planning, but we're very excited to share what we are doing each and every day with Norfolk Public Schools, with our legislators who work in partnership with us to fund us and to create legislation that directly impacts what we do each and every day.
Great. Dr. Ralston, you want to talk about safe and secure?
Yes, and the next committee that Ms. Campson and our own is the School Safety Task Force, and we felt this to be a very, very important committee to kind of get back going again. We did decide to meet at least once a month. We met with some of the administration, Dr. Gibson, Ms. Hamlin, Mr. Mallory, and it was about upping our game in terms of making our schools very, very, very safe. As a matter of fact, I heard a comment from the student saying, she wants to feel safe in her school and not feel like it's going to be attacked, and some of the things that have been happening all over the country last 10 years. That's one of the things that we're going to be doing. We're going to reconnect and connect with NPS agency partners. We're also going to look at NPS school security initiatives. We're also going to look at and kind of revisit the updated crisis plans, and we're also going to look at doing what we call a school safety audit protocols, where we're going to be going around to the different schools with experts to see what facilities and safety measures are in place and what we need to do to make sure all of our schools are safe if there is a crisis or an incident. And I think one of the biggest things that we said that we want to do is to definitely for experts to come in and make recommendations for us also. That's going to be very, very important. People who understand safety and protocol and procedures and crises to be a part of our team as we make sure our schools are safe. And that's one of the biggest concerns that I get when I'm out in the public as a school board member. They ask about school safety and is my child safe? Teachers are asking, are they safe? So we feel this particular task force is very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rowson. I'll just, the Virginia School Board Association is, their annual conference is coming up. The Delegate Assembly will be on November 10th, and so the legislative priorities are out. And so I asked all my colleagues if y'all have any particular weigh in on how you'd like for the vote to go on any of these items to please let me know. And that's all I've got there.
I have a...
Go ahead, Dr. Martin.
So I did meet with the Norfolk Public Library Board of Trustees. The big, it's outdated now, but the big, there are two big announcements. One of them was that they're looking at alternatives to the bookmobile. They want to try to provide smaller fleets. So that'll be new and hopefully in our neighborhoods. The other thing was the Friends of Norfolk Public Libraries Books and Brew and their Recycled Reads fundraiser that was at Slover last Friday, and as a sponsor I attended, and it was fabulous, and we're really excited to have that event back live at in person at Slover Library, and of course the Slover Library Foundation, of which I work, is one of their sponsors. And then today I met with Believe in Learning Norfolk, and heard about a lot of different activities that are going on around our community. But I guess all I want to say about that is that I would like to direct you to their website and their social media for that information. I know that there's a Community Connect event going on downtown that is being hosted by City Council Member Mamie Johnson, among many other events, as well as at the Botanical Gardens. I can go on and on. Let's see. The Slover Library Foundation is hosting an event with a local author, Margaret Eads. She wrote a book called What the Eyes Can't See. It will be released publicly in 2 weeks, I believe. It'll be mid-November. And the author talk will take place at Slover Library on December 1st from 5:30 to 7:30. It'll include cash bar, hors d'oeuvres, and Prince Books will be hosting the book sales, and we'll also have a book signing by the author. This is a book that looks at some of Governor Ralph Northam's social and very public incidents around race in our community, and he did participate in it. And he has reviewed the manuscript, so I've been told. We're hoping that he will attend. I know we're going to have a big attendance. This is a really, the Slover Library was designed to bring communities together to, sometimes address these hard topics that we're grappling with as a community. And so I encourage you all to be there, and I will send more information out as well. Thank you.
Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, just briefly, I just would like to encourage the board to have a conversation about the role of committees and task forces, especially as they relate to reporting directly to the board. Now that we do have a strategic plan, and now that we have approved a new contract for the superintendent, I think that we really need to have a deeper conversation around what's superintendent's work and what's board work. If we're in the middle of facilities, if we're in the middle of safety and security, if we're in the middle of things, then we can unintentionally impede the progress that we are holding the superintendent accountable. And so I know we had some discussions about the role of committees, and then we got the appointments to the committees. I think we should come back and revisit that and make sure that that we're not unintentionally hindering the work of the administration by the board being in the middle of management and operational matters. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jordan. And just for clarity, as I had stated when appointments were made, is that this will be a continuation in our governance training, and that we would talk about that role, but we needed work that needed to get done, including the legislative agenda and so many other things. So we had to keep that train moving. So that's where we're at now. And just kind of wrapping that up there, I know Dr. Birdsong serves with the superintendent's group for the governor's school and CSEP. You know, my colleagues on the governor's school board elected me again for until January, we'll see, as their chair for the governor's school. But it's a great honor for me because I'm the first alum to do that. And
Really?
yeah, and something else for y'all that you didn't know. So I went in yesterday, hardly no voice, to go and sing, to do audition, and got a contract for La Traviata. And we'll be doing that in February, March. So y'all come see me. All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn the business portion.